I want to keep in mind these two ideas of authentic engagement. Engagement might be considered participation, right? Participating, but when we go to that level of engagement, they're there, they're present, they're involved in the learning. And I want to make sure we compare that to procedural compliance, right? Procedural compliance might be when students go through the motions, right? Authentic engagement versus procedural compliance, being present in the learning compared to doing what you tell them to do. That's what we want to talk about today. We want to look at some tools to support authentic engagement. Now, some digital learning considerations. When we're designing content for our learners, we have to keep in mind a few things. Digital learning considerations would be, what is the student doing and where is the student? In order to think about engagement in a virtual learning environment, I have to keep in mind, where are they? Again, are they in person? Are they at home learning? Do they have their own device? Are they working in small groups? Where are they? What is the teacher doing? Where is the teacher? Well, of course, if I am doing a synchronous lesson, am I live? Is my video on? Am I present in the lesson? Uh, what? Where is the teacher? Am I participating live, or am I maybe recording content for my learners to access asynchronously? Digital learning might look that way. It may not be me with my students. Like right now, I'm recording a video for you all to learn asynchronously. That's one of those considerations. Right now, I have to keep in mind where my students are and what they're up to. Right now, you're listening to me. And then, of course, what is the content and where will it be accessed? You have to make sure that you have a mind on those workflows. Where will the students access this content once you have created it? Or how will they connect with you during the live lesson? Maybe that's me sharing my screen. Maybe that's me posting a link to whatever digital platform we use for learning. These are all the considerations that come to mind when designing learning and considering engagement on top of that. It's much like being in the classroom too. It's not just enough to hand out the content. We have to think about the workflow. We have to think about the lesson design. We have to think about how students will show us what they know, checking for understanding along the way. All of those things translate into a digital learning environment, and we have to make sure we know some tools for all of these considerations. So what I'd like to do is go through a quick little model lesson, or just some parts of a model lesson on character traits. So if we say, how will students participate and engage during instruction? I am teaching. What are the kiddos doing? Now, if I'm teaching live during my synchronous lesson, is it me in the front of the room going wah, 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 right? Am I having them engage somehow? Because we want to be mindful of that. Now, in a physical classroom, we might have students do things like hold up whiteboards during the lesson, right? We might have them write an answer, show an answer. Maybe we have some kind of symbols that we have them, oftentimes engagement in my second grade class, I taught them A, B, and C, simply because sometimes I didn't want to have to pull out the whiteboards. I just said, okay, guys, I'm thinking of an answer, or I'm reading this thing. Is it A? Is it B? Is it C? I want you to think about it. What is it? Okay, is it A, B, or C? Everybody right now, hide it in your lap. And everyone, and I'd wait. Okay, you guys ready? Ready? 1, 2, 3, show me. And I'd have them pull their hands up really fast, because that would be one way that they could engage in what I was saying without me having to have additional materials, right? That concept of engagement. How do I know they're actively participating? How I know that I can do a quick scan and see everybody's answer quickly, right? We have to be mindful in our lesson design that we have those opportunities intentionally placed for student engagement. Okay, here we have another example. Adam always seems to be tripping over his own feet. He has a knack for dropping things, and he has accidentally broken several dishes. Last week, he accidentally dropped his dad's cell phone in the sink. Which word best describes Adam? Oh, I see I have some choices here. Clumsy, embarrassed, funny. Okay, guys, right now, I want you to think right now. Don't tell me your answer yet. Do you have a gut reaction? Do you have a first instinct? Clumsy, embarrassed, funny. I have an idea in my mind. I think I know, but I want to return to the text and look at it again. This time, you ready? As we're listening and as we're reading, we're going to be looking for evidence of the answer we think we've chosen there. So let's look. Adam has always seems to be tripping over his own feet. He has a knack for dropping things. Mm-hmm. And has accidentally broken dishes. Oh, yeah. I think I know my answer. Last week, he accidentally dropped his cell phone in the sink. Which word best describes Adam? Now, if I were in my class with my learners, I might have them write their guess on a whiteboard and hold it up as part of my engaged lesson delivery, right? Or maybe I could do, okay, you guys ready? You have your answer? 1, 2, 3, show me. And I would have them bring it up. Now I play that game show me simply because I don't want them to look at each other around and then see, oh, you chose B, you chose, okay, let me put B, right? So the idea of show me is that it's quick and fast. And that's what I need when I want engagement. I just want quick little participation. So they're not just sitting there listening to me deliver a lesson, right? They have some accountability, right? Participation, engagement. And I could repeat that. Now, in an in-person class, that works. And even during my live synchronous lessons, I found a lot of teachers have, hand symbols, ways to show things. They might call them, thumbs up, thumbs down, and we'll do the same thing on a video screen too. You ready to go? Good to go? That's one way. Just using hand symbols, even during your live synchronous lesson, if your students have their cameras on, would be one way to practice engagement. Now, continuing on, we want to make sure that we try to use this in ways that we can have our students participate virtually too. So instead of simply presenting informational slides, Pear Deck makes your slides interactive so that every student can respond to your questions or prompts in their own screen. Wait, what? What if we could go through those lessons and the students could participate? They could circle, mark, underline, highlight parts of it. What? This sounds amazing. So Pear Deck slides help you engage every student in every seat and give formative assessment along the way too. Supports interactive and community-focused classroom that helps students build confidence and comprehension. So here on these pages of the resource slides that you'll have access to, see I have some links. One is to the Pear Deck website. Go to peardeck.com and create your free account. Now, Pear Deck is freemium, right? Free, but wait, there's more if you pay. And there are many things you could do with the free version of Pear Deck. Also know that Pear Deck is an add-on for Google Slides. So if Google Slides is a tool that you use regularly for teaching or delivering content, know that the resources you're already making, right? The things you already show your students on the screen, you can use those Google Slides and use the Pear Deck add-on. I'll model that in just a bit to create engaging activities for your learners. Now, a little tour of Pear Deck before I launch it up is that again, it could start with some Google Slides, right? You see, I build my lesson. Here's my content that I want to show my learners. I see that I can go to the add-ons and go to the Pear Deck add-on, and that will allow me to launch this little tool. So if I want students to be able to engage with this, I'm going to launch the Pear Deck add-on. And during that live lesson, I have a number of things going on my page. It shows me how many students are participating, shows me how many have responded. I can view the response, I can freeze their screens. There's some tools in my teacher view of Pear Deck that I'll show you in a minute, but just know that there are some tools, right? So I advance the slides, it advances the slides on the student screens too. It shows me who's participating, and I can even peek in on their answers. So when we're talking about Pear Deck, I can see the student responses. So depending on the kinds of question, it might look different, but I can see maybe these students, very much gave this a thumbs down, and some were kind of in the middle there. Continuing on, I can see the students as I present, I can see their responses. So these are my slides, but in my educator dashboard, I can actually see what the students are up to. There are a number of pre-made resources. For example, this thumbs up and thumbs down is a template that I can use in Pear Deck, as well as there's some fun ones like this one right here, where we might have students, fill something in, count parts and wholes, 10 frame of sorts. I might even have them engage in text. This here is a piece of text straight from our curriculum, and students are able to mark right on the text. So there's lots of ways or lots of looks that Pear Deck might take during my lesson. Now, going back to this one, what I'd really like is on a base level, I'd like my students to be able to circle or mark or select the answer. And man, wouldn't it be awesome if I could actually have them go underline a part of the text? And that way they can show the evidence, find it in the text. So I'm going to do this again, but this time we're going to try a different tool. I want to be able to have my students live participate in this, but I also want to make sure that if I don't have access to Pear Deck, that I have some additional ways to do that. So I want to share a tool, and this one is called whiteboard.fi. Now, whiteboard.fi would be an option for student engagement. It's kind of like a whiteboard tool where students can draw and respond on content. It's just a quicker way to do that without having to set up the Pear Deck version. There are benefits, of course, to setting it up with Pear Deck. We have the ability to get takeaways, the different ways I can view the student responses. There's a lot more variety and flexibility, a lot more buttons in Pear Deck, but sometimes people might think that that's not a benefit, right? I want my students to engage and I don't want a lot of setup work for me. So what can I do to facilitate engagement without a lot of extra work on the part of the teacher? So that's what we're going to do right now is we're going to check out a different way to do that same kind of activity. So let's go check it out. We're going to go to a new website, and this one is called whiteboard.fi. And we're going to use the same idea, except this time, instead of using Pear Deck to have you engage, we're going to use this tool called whiteboard.fi. Now, I want to do the same thing where we do the student experience and the teacher experience, but let me go ahead and just demonstrate whiteboard.fi to you first. So here again, I'm going to go to whiteboard.fi. And what happens here is you'll see that I can start a new class right away. I don't have to create an account. I don't have to do a lot of extra things here. I can open up my whiteboard just like that. My students don't have to create accounts either, which is nice. If you work in a school district where there are very specific rules and procedures for getting apps approved or for getting student accounts created, that's a big deal. So you want to make sure that, of course, whatever tool you use that is approved, but also know that this one's great because your students don't necessarily have to get an account. It's just a quick little way to have our students engage. So we're going to go back over to the side where we see the teacher screen and the student screen because I want to show you that same idea of the activity over here. So let me go ahead. Thanks for your patience while I get this. I just want you to see both sides of this. So again, on the left-hand side, you see I have my teacher window. Hi there. So here's my teacher window. And I also have my student window over there on the other side. I want to demonstrate how we can use whiteboard.fi for student engagement, just like we just use Pear Deck, just a different option, right? We want to have tools for engagement. So whiteboard.fi is great. So I'm going to, as a teacher, click new class, and I'm going to call this literacy temp, right? So this is my temporary literacy class. There are some settings here I might want to learn about. One sets up a waiting room, kind of like when you do with your synchronous lessons, right? During Zoom or whatever, you might have a waiting room just so students can't start until you're ready. And I also have this option here, and this is a setting that really has to do with students who have poor Wi-Fi. If you have a number of students who struggle with having strong enough Wi-Fi, this is something that could help with that. We're going to go ahead and just create it just as is here, and you'll see that on my teacher side, there's not a lot going on, but I do notice that there's this ability to copy a URL to a clipboard. When you're talking about working with young learners, again, the idea of my 7-year-olds having to type in all this, it would take a very long time. But by putting up a clipboard or copying this to a clipboard, I can paste it into the chat or to a Google Classroom or whatever tool it is that I'm using to share content to my learners. If your students have a device with a QR code, it's nice too, or if they just have their phones. If you have older students, right, our learners probably don't have phones in the primary years, but if you're working with teachers or people who do have phones, you can put up a QR code. Or if your young learners have iPads, this is a great option as well. But I'm going to go ahead and copy that URL or that address to the clipboard, And I'm going to head it over to my student account, and I'm just going to put it over there. Now, remember, I would probably put it in a link for them. Now it says joining room. So on the left, I have my teacher screen. On the right, I have my student screen, and I'm going to put Patton S, right? She's going to put her name and she's going to join. So when she gets there, all she has is a whiteboard. But notice how I now have a thumbnail of her whiteboard. So on my student whiteboard, we have that. And, I might have the students do some basic, like just figure it out. When you insert a new tool or, start a new tool with learners, you do want to give them a chance to just push all the buttons. So she might go in and practice writing her name, right? She might go in and figure it out. Again, the idea of having a touch pad versus a touch screen, we might want to be mindful of asking them to actually write things. It can be challenging, but you know what? They get pretty good at writing with their little finger on the touchpad, but just keep in mind, what we're asking them to do. Or maybe I might have them do a quick little spell word, like maybe the word is red. And so I could have them do it. And notice as Patton writes on her screen on the right, within just a few seconds, I get to measure the engagement. I can check her response right there within a few seconds. And if I had multiple students, they would all be showing here on the window. So this is another way, whiteboard.fi, very little setup on my end, but very easy for the learners.